Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Thursday, January 25th, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. A Minnesota state trooper is facing murder charges in the death of a black man during a traffic stop. We'll be joined by civil rights attorney Harry Daniels, who's representing Ricky Cobb II's family, and he'll join us right here on the show. President Joe Biden says Americans have created a stronger economy as the country exceeds expectations, proof that Bidenomics is working. Well, that fool Senator Tim Scott is spreading lies about how Trump has helped minorities more than Biden. Flat out lies. Plus, Texas's Crown Act is going on trial next month. Black teen Darryl George has not been in a regular classroom because of the length of his locks. Not only that, the superintendent of the district takes an ad out in a local newspaper saying that conformity is the American way. We'll be joined by a member of the Texas legislature to discuss this. Also, folks, it's National Gun Violence Survivors Week, and the Maryland Congressman is hosting an action summit on Capitol Hill to discuss strategies for reducing gun violence. He and a mother who lost her daughter to gun violence will join me on the show. Folks, it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
A Minnesota state trooper is charged with murdering a black motorist during a traffic stop. The stop took place on July 31st. Ricky Cobb II failed to get out of his car and took his foot off of the brake when officers tried to arrest him. Trooper Ryan Londregan shot Cobb as he drove away. He has been charged with second-degree unintentional murder, first-degree assault, and second-degree manslaughter. Hennepin County Attorney Maryland Congressman said the officer's use of deadly force against Cobb was simply not justified. Joining us from Minneapolis is civil rights attorney Harry Daniels, who represents the Cobb family. Glad to have you here. So they stopped Cobb, and was he still in drive? And so what? He let his foot off of the gas, and the car, did it begin to speed away, or did it slowly begin to move away?
Roland, that did not happen at all, and thanks for having me on. Actually, the defendant, and I'm not going to call him a trooper or officer, he's a defendant, rightfully so, he shot Mr. Cobb before the vehicle moved. That's one thing that's very clear in the video. I know it happens pretty quickly. However, when you look at that video, slow it down, and as the district attorney reviewed that video, that before the vehicle moved at all, he had shot Mr. Cobb twice as a result of a firearm going off and striking him, shooting him. Then and only then did he decided to drive away. So he's already shot before he even took off in the vehicle. So let's do this. Let's do this here. Let's actually play the video so people can actually see. So this is when. The trooper that's approaching the vehicle, is that the one who's now defendant? Yeah, here's the body camera that's clearly inside the passenger side, and if you look at the video, he immediately escalates. The trooper that's on. Okay, guys, freeze it right there. And first, do we have audio, control room? All right, so Harry, let's do this here. We're gonna play this. We're gonna turn the audio up. So roll it back to when they were before they walk into folks. And I want you to play it. I want you to have the audio turned up so we can actually hear what took place. All right, so let's go.
every time y'all talk about, we need some stuff to talk about. Y'all gonna take me to jail for what? No. Cause I'll call my attorney right now. Hey, this ain't no funny shit. But if y'all talking about that shit with Terry Young.
But you have to step out, okay?
Hold on, is it a warrant?
No, it's not a warrant. You need to step out.
Hold on.
I'll explain it all out. We get out.
Hold on, is y'all finna get on some funny shit with me? Y'all keep it a buck with me, bro. But if y'all finna get on some funny shit with me, y'all can tell me right now so I can call my attorney. Can't hang my keys. Why? See, y'all keep it a buck with me. Y'all pull me off of my headlights. Okay, we passed that, so where we at then? So where are we at then? But when you say step out of the vehicle, you're gonna explain to me, and then y'all
Get out of the car now!
All right, folks. So this is the body cam. So, Harry, did his body cam simply fall off? Is that why this is the picture we have?
Roland, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I do know that body camera was in that position for a while. As you can see, before the vehicle moved forward, and he can hear it better. You can really hear it that good. But he immediately shoots twice. His partner is reaching across to take Ricky out of the seatbelt, to unbuckle his seatbelt. But for Ricky's body, the other officer probably got shot. He shot him at point blank range. Anybody know point blank? That's not a time for the bullet to come out of barrel and drop down. It's a plain line from him shooting from the passenger side into ultimately striking Ricky. So
the trooper who shot was the one who was on the passenger side.
That's correct. The trooper shot was the one on the passenger side. The one that's on the driver's side did not shoot. He was trying to extricate Ricky from the vehicle by reaching over.
So, folks, do this here. Cue this one back up. The one that is queued back up. Because, again, this is the body cam footage of the officer who was talking to Ricky on the driver's side. So let's play that.
Pass with LTAC 2 for pursuit of shots fired. Westbound 94 from Dowling, David Boy, Frank 402.
Valid protection order.
60 minutes of the car stop, 40 seconds.
Status valid.
Our stop 40 seconds.
Order. License status valid.
Here, swing around the other side. Yep.
So, Harry, at this point, shots already been fired, correct?
Yeah, at this point, he went about a quarter mile down the road. Obviously, he was losing blood and lost consciousness and crashed into the concrete median, and they followed him, catch up with him. And at this point, they try to give life-saving measures, CPR, but he essentially dies right there on the side of the road there.
Why was he pulled over in the first place?
Tail light.
Again, we've done so many of these stories, and something as basic as a tail light leads to the death of an African American in the hands of cops.
Yeah, it's this thing. It was some type of discussion about not even a warrant for his arrest, or anything, but a protection order that one of his baby mamas had going back and forth with each other. There's a question as to whether they actually want to bring him in, and when I say they, the troopers could have given him and told him, hey, this was going on, this was happening. he was not unwilling to go with him. He just asked them, why am I man taken? Why you pulled me out of the car? Then the escalation from the defendant, Londregan, who's been charged with murder, he clearly escalates and elevates his voice and pull his weapon to get out the car for no reason. There's no threat. Mr. Cobb had no weapon, no knife, or anything in his hand. I mean, that's clear because the driver's side trooper is in close proximity of him and reaching over his body. So he wasn't in fear that he was going to do anything, had any weapon. But as soon as he reached over, this guy point blank shoots him. And only then did the car move forward. I mean, they was talking about, let's say some of the defense attorneys, his defense attorneys talking about it's a hero being prosecuted. Roland, it was a hero that night. And that hero was Ricky Cobb, that body shielded that other officer on the driver's side. Because but for Ricky's body, unfortunately, the other officer probably would have been shot as well. Make no mistake about it, this is a clear charge. It's a good charge. It's the same charge that was in the George Floyd case with Derek Chauvin, the exact same charges. The murder, unintentional murder. And the reason why it's unintentional, because if you charge it as intentional, you have to prove that he had the intent to kill. Clearly, if you shoot a person at point blank range, 1,500 pounds of pressure coming out of a weapon, more than likely you're going to kill him. But I think this district attorney, Moriarty, her team did a fantastic job and thoughtful going through the process and charging him. There was no reason whatsoever for him to shoot his weapon. There was no reason. Roland, it was no reason for him to even pull his weapon out. There was no escalation. There was anything, no threat whatsoever. Ricky was compliant, and people was talking about, well, he drove and they shot. Absolutely not. It's not the case. There was no dragging anybody. He was shot before he drove, and rightfully so. If you get shot at by the police and you ain't did anything wrong, it's a fight and flight mode. But unfortunately, this young man, this young father, he has a twin brother. Who's great, who spoke very elegant, looked just like him, and his family miss him dearly. And this is, unfortunately, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the same grounds where George Floyd was killed, and Deontay Wright and so many others, and this is historical. I want the nation to understand and know your viewers that this is historical. In the George Floyd matter, it was a state's attorney bringing the charges. This is a county attorney who brought these charges. Her staff has brought these charges against an officer who clearly committed murder, charged with murder, and looking at 70 years in prison.
How old was Ricky?
I believe he was 33 years old.
33 years old. Harry, we appreciate it. Thanks a bunch.
Hey, man, I hate coming over here in these circumstances, but I appreciate you guys for keeping these stories alive in the front. And maybe one day that I will be out of business as a civil rights attorney. But until that day, we're going to keep pushing forward. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks a bunch. Folks, going to a break. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
This is Essence Atkins.
Mr. Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon.
It's me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you watch.
You're watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
All right, folks, our Thursday panel joining us right now, Dr. Greg Card, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University, out of Washington, D.C., Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show on Sirius XM Radio, out of D.C. as well, Lauren Victoria Burke, Black Press USA, Arlington, Virginia. Lauren, you often talked about having family members who are law enforcement officers, and I swear, I mean, over and over and over and over and over again, traffic stops leading to deaths of black motorists.
Yeah, I feel like we're watching the same video over and over and over again. And it's a shame. And it shouldn't have to be said that we shouldn't have to deal with this type of behavior. We just shouldn't. We should never get used to it. We should never be okay with it. We should never think that this is normal, that this is somehow good operating procedure by law enforcement. A lot of these jurisdictions, a lot of these officers, in my view, are very poorly prepared, poorly trained. The standard of hiring is too low. And you're dealing with some insecure individuals who do stupid things, particularly in situations where they stop somebody and there's any sort of discussion, any sort of lack of compliance, none of which justifies somebody being shot to death. Unfortunately, it is the case, the reality of the history of this country, the reality of the circumstance we find ourselves in now in 2024 is that it is a incredibly bad idea to get into some sort of argument with any of these law enforcement people, particularly in these smaller jurisdictions, where, you know, there's not a whole lot to do except stop people for taillights. I mean, that's pretty much it. And all of my friends and family who've been in law enforcement, I don't have any law enforcement on the federal level, but I have friends that are on the federal level, and it never ceases to amaze me that it's very rare that we hear one of these stupid, you know, stories like the one we just heard where somebody stopped on a tail light. So they're not looking for a suspect for a murder. They're not looking for suspects for some violent activity or anything like that. It's a variable stop that's decided on by an individual officer on patrol, apparently. And it amazes me. It's always this type of small town cop. Very rarely is it anybody who has actually gone through a ton of training, which on the federal level, they get trained for something every freaking week.
Well,
at any rate, it's still crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, the difference here, Reese, this is a state trooper. And so you would think that state troopers have a higher level of training than would some small town cop.
Yeah, but I don't think in this case it's a training issue. It's a matter of who gonna check me boo issue, right? I mean, it's the fact that this gentleman had the audacity to act like he was going to try to get away. It seemed to me more like his foot slipped. Maybe he was a little panicked. I mean, you know, all of a sudden you're getting pulled over from, you know, your taillights being off to now people saying they want you to step out the car. And I think any black man has a rational fear of what could happen to him getting out of that car. And so, like his attorney said, fight or flight is to me a rational move. But I think it's ridiculous how these police officers expect full compliance, excellent judgment. Yes, you wouldn't normally want to do anything to arouse suspicion from these trigger-happy cops. But at the end of the day, it's a very scary situation. Yet for themselves, that standard of perfection, that standard of always keeping your cool about you and making sure that you don't do anything that can escalate a situation, they don't seem to have that. And so I think that it's encouraging to see charges here. I think that the burden is pretty low. I mean, it's not so much an intent crime as it is, look at the end result. Was that really necessary crime that he's charged with? But like Lauren says, this is just like Groundhog's Day when it comes to these cases, and it never gets any less disgusting and tragic.
Great.
I agree with Lauren and I agree with Reese. This is not outlandish. It's not exceptional. It's not an aberration. This is how this system was set up to work from the time they came to get us. You police our bodies. We do not have control over our lives. Our efforts to resist at the lowest common denominator come down to one word: survival. This punk Ryan Londregan was hunting at 2 a.m., at 2:11 a.m. when he showed up 20 minutes after the two other hunters performing their job in the procedure that they have been trained to perform it, not the formal procedure, but I don't even call it informal, but the cultural procedure, which is to hunt, to confront, to escalate, to harm up to and through execution, and then to seek the protection and excuse of the system that puts you in the position to hunt, to escalate, to harm, and then you'll get away with it. Now, hopefully this won't happen, but again, we have to stop looking at these things as if they are aberrations. This is the way they are cultivated to perform. So 20 minutes after he gets there, as we heard, you see them walk through, and they've stopped him, but that's a pretense. We're going to now scan to see if we can escalate this further. And yes, they found that he had violated a protective order in nearby county, Ramsey County, but that there was no outstanding warrant. Well, we can't get him on that. So, and we saw that those cases a couple of months ago. What can we get him on? What can we get him on? So then they call Ramsey County, and Ramsey County's like, yeah, we want him arrested. Okay. Now, this will be a civil lawsuit. There'll be a settlement. There'll be money. But this man, Ricky Cobb II, is in the ground. So now this punk Londregan grabs on the passenger side door. I can't let you go. Why? Because I am trained to hunt you, N-word. My job is to do this. So, of course, Brother Cobb, in that moment, as Lauren said, fearful for his life, considering escaping, whatever he was doing, and made his foot slip off that or come off that brake and go and let that car roll forward. In that moment, Londregan had all he needed to do, the reason he needed to execute. This man is he cannot be reformed. His system cannot be reformed. It must be remade. And by remade, I don't mean in the image that it's in now. This is a fundamental problem facing us as African people in this funky settler state. It's working the way it was supposed to work.
Lauren, this is precisely why some police chiefs in a lot of these major cities have said to their officers, stop pulling people over for minor traffic violations. This very reason.
Yeah, and a lot of times, if you watch the statistics with regard to deaths in custody for law enforcement, a lot of times it involves traffic stops, because what ends up happening is, someone is stopped on a highway and another car hits a police officer. So I'm not sure why law enforcement isn't encouraging their officers not to stop anyway, on top of the fact that these petty violations really, frankly, don't matter. In a lot of states, particularly Virginia comes to mind, is we have to register a car every single year. You have to register your car. So if you've got a down tail light, it won't pass registration. So you're not going to get past a year with that. So why are we wasting resources with law enforcement stopping people for these petty violations? And in fact, in the legislature, there have been some moves to encourage law enforcement not to make these types of stops, because this level of escalation happens. And by the way, state trooper comes down to what state we're in. A lot of these state troopers are podunk, and some of the states are pretty good at training the troopers, but other states are not. So it's a crapshoot in terms of training. And training does matter. I know we're sick of hearing training, and we should be sick of hearing training, but it does matter. And you'll see that the departments and the agencies that train a lot, federal is a good example of this. We're not seeing them in the news very much, because they don't get involved in these dumb, crazy incidents. Don't make any sense.
It's just increasingly frustrating, Reese, that it's a traffic stop. I think back to the brother who was shot with air freshener hanging down. And again, we do so many of these. Walter Scott, that was a tail light. I mean, just basic fundamental things, and we're sitting here having to deal with the reality of somebody black being killed and families having to bury people, and now go through all of that particular trauma over a damn tail light.
Yeah, it's stupid, and that's because the people that they're pulling over, they know aren't a threat. That's why half the damn crimes go unsolved, because they're too punk ass to get out there and solve some motherfucking crimes, fight some crimes. What happened to Crime Stoppers? Somebody having their taillights off, just flash high beams, keep it goddamn moving. But this is what they're doing because they have a population of people that are sitting ducks, waiting for them to get their rocks off that night. Maybe they don't shoot somebody that night. Maybe they just berate them, harass them, kill some time, doing whatever the hell they need to do to make themselves feel important, except for doing the actual work of protecting and serving the public. And so, I mean, I'm a big fan of abolishing traffic stops personally. I just paid a $250 damn ticket, from little cameras and shit yesterday. And you know what? As much as that was painful, I would absolutely take that over having to interact with the police officer saying, ma'am, do you know why I pulled you over? I will pay that ticket and go on about my business and actually have a life to continue to live. And so as long as these traffic stops serve as a pretext to mess with people, we're going to continue to see these kind of stories, and we're going to continue to not see any decline in the actual crime being solved and stopped in our communities.
And of course, and we're likely going to see unions and other cops out there now complain, oh, this hurts morale, stuff along those lines. They want complete and utter protection as opposed to holding folks accountable, Greg.
Absolutely. And it does hurt morale. It should crush morale. It does irritate them. It should irritate them to retirement or finding other work. What happens to those police chiefs, to those district attorneys who are appointed on promises to do things like stop these small arrests? What happens to them? They are opposed by the, quote, rank and file. The culture of hunting is the culture of policing. And those good people, and by that I don't mean to make a good-evil distinction here, although Ryan Londregan has taken a life for no reason. And so we know what side of the ledger that falls on if we were to say good and evil. But that having been said, anyone who tries to oppose this from the inside will be opposed by the rank and file. It should destroy their morale. It should reach into their souls and turn them inside out. So we have to change the way I think we talk about these things. So when we say, well, if there's a way to reform policing so that it won't hurt morale, that's not true. We should say instead, we are going to destroy your morale. We're going to overwhelm you by our collective force, whether it be through the ballot box, through protests, through appointments of police chiefs and supervisors, and the election of officials, district attorneys and congresspeople and city officials and others, and the creation of civilian review boards and all that. We must come forward collectively to destroy the police and remake whatever public safety concept we need in the image of the people who should be being protected. Because these people are rogues. They recruit the Ryan Londregans of the world to do exactly what they did to Ricky Cobb.
Folks, hold tight 1 second. Got to go to break. We come back. We'll talk about gun deaths in this country and the effort to lower them, stop them. We'll discuss that next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Be sure to support us in what we do, folks. Our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each to raise $1 million to offset the cost of not only running this show, but the other shows on the Black Star Network. There's no other black-owned media outlet doing the kind of content that we do every single day here on this network. Your support is critical to us doing what we do. So you can see your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Grow your business or career with Grow with Google's wide range of online courses, digital training, and tools. Gain in-demand job skills with flexible online training programs designed to put you on the fast track to jobs in high-growth fields. No experience is necessary. Learn at your own pace. Complete the online certificate program on your own terms. Stand out to employers, get on a path to in-demand jobs, and connect with top employers who are currently hiring. Take one professional career certificate program or all 6. Earn a Google Career Certificate to prepare for a job in a high-growth field like data analytics, project management, UX design, cybersecurity, and more. All professional career certificate programs must be completed by December 31st, 2024. Scan the QR code to complete the application. There are 1,000 scholarships available. Grow with Google and J. Hood and Associates. Be job ready and qualify for in-demand jobs.
We just have one of the oldest cultures that's desperately needed for mutual salvation. That's the consciousness. We have the keys in our roots to save mankind. We get to see the condition of other countries, other oceans, other cultures. And if we believe in God, a lot of us do, He's telling us if you don't get rid of that stuff that makes somebody superior or inferior and work together for the mutual salvation, everybody's gone.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we're going to be talking about common sense. We think that people have it, know how to use it, but it is something that people often have to learn. The truth is, most of us are not born with it, and we need to teach common sense, embrace it, and give it to those who need it most, our kids.
So I always tell teachers to listen out to what conversations the students are having about what they're getting from social media, and then let's get ahead of it and have the appropriate conversations with them.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Jamia Pugh. I am from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, just an hour right outside of Philadelphia.
My name is Jasmine Pugh. I'm also from Coatesville, Pennsylvania.
You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
Number of people killed annually in America is still too high, those who die by guns. Now, the number of gun-related deaths is on the decline. 2023, there were 18,874. That was a drop from what we have seen over the last 3 years, but that is still simply 18,874 too many. Maryland Congressman Glenn Ivey wants to keep that decrease continuing. That's why he is hosting the inaugural Prince George's County Gun Violence Survivors Week Action Summit. He is joined along with Dr. Tyrese McAllister, whose daughter was a victim of gun violence. So glad to have both of you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Glenn, what we continue to face is this here. If people want to understand the difference between two parties, Republican and Democrat, you literally have one party that whatever the NRA wants, they do.
Yeah.
When we have seen gun violence in this country, when we have seen mass shootings, Tennessee, where there was a school shooting, one of the first things they did was grant immunity to a gun manufacturer in that state. And so that really is, if people are sitting here at home saying, hey, both of these parties are the same, this is a perfect issue where it's clear they're not.
That's absolutely right. We're trying to move bills through Congress right now that are just really straightforward. I'll give you a couple examples. I've got a bill that's called Raise the Age. It would take the age from 18 to 21 to purchase an assault weapon. It's already 21 to buy a handgun. I can't get one Republican to co-sponsor that bill. Another one, ghost guns. The only reason you have a ghost gun is if you want to commit a crime and not get caught because they don't have serial numbers on them. And people who can buy them just over on the internet. Can't get one Republican co-sponsor for that one either. So, just really straightforward stuff, expanding background checks, red flags, and the like. they're not co-sponsoring or supporting any of those, much less bringing them to the floor for a vote. So we're going to keep trying to push to get those. We're trying to use discharge petitions, which is sort of an arcane strategy, but we need to try everything we can to try and address these problems.
This right here, Dr. McAllister, is a perfect example of when I hear people say, you know what, I'm just going to sit this one out. I'm not going to vote. Whether it's for president, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Vice President Kamala Harris, whether it's for U.S. Senate, for members of Congress, whether it's for state elected officials. And I keep saying, well, you can't say there are issues that you care about, but then you're going to sit elections out when it's the politicians who are the policy makers.
You're absolutely right. It's very frustrating, especially for a person like myself who lost a daughter or child to gun violence, that people would even think to sit this out or to not get involved in other ways. Like, we need all hands on deck. Because the Republicans aren't doing anything, we definitely need everybody else to do something that will help gun violence.
So, Congressman Ivey, what will this summit do? What's the plan of action?
Well, it's a sort of multi-pronged approach. We're trying to do things where we're bringing survivors together, like Dr. McAllister, who unfortunately are in this club now, basically, where they've lost a loved one to gun violence. They might have been parents, might have been siblings, but they lost someone. But there's a power that comes from that. So you've got people like Dr. McAllister who've turned that pain into power and are trying to use it to impact policies at the state and local level and the federal level too. But also they formed a network where they're providing support to each other, other parents or siblings who just are recently going through something that they've gone through before. And Dr. McAllister actually has a background in mental health treatment too, so she's especially good at this. Another big part of what we're trying to do is get resources to the communities, grants. The Biden administration has been fantastic, not just on this front, but across the board. But, getting funds for key programs, like we're trying to get violence interrupters. We're trying to do programs that incorporate the hospitals. We're trying to do outreach to get additional treatment, mental health treatment from an intervention and prevention standpoint, instead of waiting until after some shooting has taken place and somebody's been hurt or killed. So there are all of these kinds of things we want to try and bring forward tomorrow. And see if we can sort of come together, work together, and move forward together.
Doc, do you and others plan to go knock on the doors of Republican members of Congress and say, why don't you attend this summit and see if they even will show up?
We had not planned to do that, but I think that's an amazing idea. We definitely need to hold elected officials accountable, because no matter how you got in office, no matter who voted you in, you are supposed to hold their office for every person that you're over. And so we do need to do that. So thank you for that idea. I think we should be more aggressive.
Questions from the panel. Reese, you first.
Yeah, I want to know how can you influence at least funding towards these programs outside of the official legislative process, where you have to get a bill passed, like in the appropriations or any of those kinds of methods of getting more funding towards preventing gun violence?
Great question. I mean, there's a couple of ways to go about it. One is through the grants process. So the Department of Justice, which had a lot of programs, their burn grants and other grant approaches for these types of programs, have been dramatically expanded under the Biden administration and continue to grow. And the Biden administration also launched the first ever White House office that's focused solely on reducing gun violence. So they're really helping to try and get that out. We're trying to get the word out as well, so people who need these grants to provide the services at the local level, like in Prince George's County, have access to those dollars. Secondly, we're blessed to live in a state, Maryland, where the state legislatures and localities and the counties are providing services and funding to do this as well. They see the importance of it. They're passing laws that we can't get done at the federal level, like banning ghost guns, for example. They're doing it at the local level, too. So it's got to be a 1-2 approach. And I think, we're aimed at really trying to build that up and expand it and accelerate it tomorrow morning.
Greg?
Thank you, Roland. And reading through the materials for the summit, you know, one thing continued to come to my mind. I want to ask you all about this. We know that guns are a symptom, albeit a deadly one, of some underlying, very deeply structural or cultural problems. We talk about education. We talk about employment. In the current environment where a number of the folks who push back against gun control legislation and anything related to that are folks who profit greatly, how can we think about the nature of this problem more deeply in terms of the culture of violence that this society foments and the profit factor as it relates to people who have a vested interest in continuing to kind of foment that culture of violence?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think one of the panelists tomorrow is going to talk in terms of accountability for gun manufacturers and distributors, because what's happened is they've been given essentially protection from any kind of lawsuits, which would force them to be held accountable and pay damages for the injuries that they're causing. As you may know, I mean, any shooting can cost a community up to $1 million or beyond. And that number goes up if there's a death. So, you know, we've got to find ways to make sure that the people who are essentially merchants of this kind of death can be held accountable for it. And then with respect to the sort of trying to get to the root causes of it, I agree. I think we need to expand education programs. We need to improve the schools. And those are long-term efforts that we need to make sure we build out. But at the same time, we need short-term solutions because we want to make sure we're not losing people now. You know, we've got kids dying like Dr. McAllister's daughter. We need to make sure we're doing everything we can to derail that as quickly as possible. And so we're looking to some of these quicker term solutions like the violence interrupters and other strategies like that.
Lauren?
Ms. McAllister, sorry to hear about your daughter. Congressman Ivey, when you were a prosecutor, I guess a little bit along the lines of what Professor Carr was saying, getting to this point where we might be able to sue the gun manufacturers, was there any idea that you had maybe during your prosecutorial years of getting after things like banning the ammunition used in a lot of the more popular weapons that are used on the street, which is almost, I guess, every weapon. But I mean, is there any other outside the box thinking? Because certainly federal legislation seems to be completely off limits. But I just wondered, Congressman, is there anything out there that might be something that could stop gun violence that isn't the typical inside the box things that we keep seeing, like red flag laws and stuff like that?
Well, I think it's got to be a comprehensive and coordinated approach. So there's no individual solution or policy that's going to fix this whole problem because it's too big. I mean, there's 400 million guns out there. And as Dr. McAllister's talked about, you know, there's mental health issues for young people across the board. Some of them have grown up in communities where they've lost friends or cousins and haven't necessarily gotten treatment or assistance for that. But, you know, when I was state's attorney from 2002 to 2010, there was a period where we overlapped with the assault weapons ban, and we saw that it had worked. But the Republicans were able to keep us from extending it. And so we've gone without it for maybe almost 20 years now, I think. So, and we've seen the problems with that, you know, the expansion of, you know, gun shootings and these mass shootings, whether it's the grocery store in Buffalo or, you know, the concert in Las Vegas. We've got kids now. When I was a kid in school, we did fire drills. Now they do active shooter drills. So those are the changes that we've had to deal with. But we have to try and find whether it's a new approach, like some of the things that, like the violence interrupters are not brand new, but they're new to some communities, including Prince George's. We've only had those for a couple of years. We want to try and expand those. And there's some things that are just tried and true, like intervention prevention programs, faith communities, coaches. Sometimes it's tutors, mentors. Sometimes it's reaching a kid is the biggest solution. It doesn't necessarily have to be a new law or something. One person can make a difference in a kid's life.
Thanks.
Dr. So question for you, Doc. What would you like for residents, regular, ordinary people to do? People out there who suggest that, you know what, they're powerless. What do you want them to do?
I want them to realize that they have more power than they think. I want them to do something. Everyone can do something, whether it's write a check, talk about it on social media, join an organization that's doing the work, mentor a child, take care of your own children, right? Like address the issues in your own household. Everybody really has to do something because this is, no matter what your socioeconomic level is, nobody wants to bury a child. But we've got to be able to do something about it, and everybody has power to do something.
Absolutely. Dr. McAllister, Glenn Ivey, we surely appreciate it. What time is the summit and where?
It's tomorrow morning from 9 to 1, and it's at the Library of Congress here in Washington, D.C. It's across the street from the United States Capitol. So everybody's welcome. Come on out. We, as Dr. McAllister said, we need all hands on deck, and we'd love to have you there.
All right. Well, appreciate it. Good luck with it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Coming up next on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Senator Tim Scott. Really? He's trying to clap back at some folks. After that Stephen from Django performance he did with Trump on stage. Got that for you. Also, Donald Trump has told Republicans, hey, don't do anything about the border. Don't fix it because I want to run on it. Well, Senator Mitt Romney had some words from him about that as well. I'll discuss all of that next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, nurses are the backbone of the healthcare industry, and yet only 7% of them are Black. What's the reason for that low number? Well, a lack of opportunities and growth in their profession. Joining us on the next Get Wealthy is Needy Bartanilli. She's going to be sharing exactly what nurses need to do and what approach they need to take ownership of their success.
So the Black Nurse Collaborative really spawned from a place and a desire to create opportunities to uplift each other, those of us in the profession, to also look and reach back and create pipelines and opportunities for other nurses like us.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Coles.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Yo, it's your man Dion Cole from Blackish, and you watch
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott is calling out liberals for criticizing his endorsement of Donald Trump. He sat down with Fox News, and Scott had the audacity to spread lies and misinformation by saying Trump did more for minorities than President Joe Biden. Ready for the lies? Let's go.
Were you expecting this? This kind of treatment?
I was not, but here's what I do expect.
Oh, I was. I was expecting it.
I expect the left to lose their minds because Donald Trump did more for minorities than Joe Biden will ever do. Think about the fact that Donald Trump put more money in historically black colleges and universities than any other president. How
about wages and small business?
Stop right there. See, okay, all right. Now look, we have absolutely proven that that's a lie. Dr. Walter Kimbrough, two-time HBCU president, has worked at others, has consistently shown that to be a flat-out lie. He has literally laid out that Donald Trump, in the budget that he presented, zeroed out a specific program that was created under President George W. Bush, that was extended under President Obama, that expired. It was a program amounting to about $220 million for Hispanic serving in black and HBCU institutions. Y'all heard what I just said? $220 million. Congresswoman Alma Adams, working with Congressman Bobby Scott of Virginia, she's from North Carolina, put it back in the budget, fought for it, got it passed in the House. Then it was held up by Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee in the Senate, where Trump came in with the HBCU presidents, had HBCU week. Several of them mentioned the program. He took it as, oh, I'm going to make permanent funding for HBCUs. Y'all, the total amount for that program is $220 million for HBCU and Hispanic serving institutions. Those are facts. Senator Tim Scott, right there, is lying. And if he wants South Carolinians to show him proof, go to South Carolina State, go to Claflin, and they'll tell you, yeah, that's not quite true, Timmy. Press play.
The bottom 20% wage growth was higher than the top 20%. The lowest unemployment rate in the history of the country came first under Donald Trump. You think about rare blood diseases like sickle cell anemia. Who helped champion that cause with me? Donald Trump. Think about the greatest anti-poverty program in the history of the country. Opportunity zones.
Stop. Oh, my God. First of all, let's be real clear. Timmy, long before your ass got you in the United States Senate, black folks were fighting on behalf of sickle cell anemia. Long before. I was a kid in Houston growing up when they had the National Sickle Cell Anemia Telethon and was going door to door actually collecting money. The Congressional Black Caucus has been fighting on behalf of sickle cell anemia long before you decided to show up to the United States Senate. Just stop lying. And then he goes, whoa, first under Trump. Yeah, guess what? The black unemployment went lower under President Biden and Vice President Harris. Lower, Timmy. Then he said, oh, opportunity zones, the greatest anti-poverty program. That is a flat-out, fundamental, undeniable lie. And guess what, y'all? In the last year of Trump's presidency, I personally emailed the White House saying, can you provide for me the data of the effects of these opportunity zones? I'm still waiting. And guess what? One of the black preachers who was at the White House from Baltimore touting the opportunity zones, we brought him on our show that night after he did the White House. He came back 6 months later and said, this ain't doing a damn thing. So I don't know who the hell Tim Scott think he's fooling, but there's no way in hell that the opportunity zones, which also ain't new. HUD Secretary Jack Kemp was touting the exact same thing. This is not new. all that has done is give tax breaks to developers. And I dare Senator Tim Scott to come on this show and bring with him the data to show me and prove me wrong how Opportunity Zones have been the biggest anti-poverty program in history. You can go on Fox News and lie, Tim, because Laura Ingraham ain't the brightest bulb in a dark room. She don't know jack about black people, so she's not going to challenge you on any of this. What you said is a lie. Go ahead and play the rest of these lies.
How about just a good economy? That helps. That helps African Americans.
7 million
like
new
the rest
jobs.
of us.
And guess what? He helped white people and black people and brown people. And, I mean, he liked everybody.
But they're going really personal on you, and I'm used to it because of what they've done to Justice Thomas, who's been my friend for 40 years, and it's so disgusting, it's so predictable, and it's so lame. They're out of ammunition, they're out of ideas, so it's you have to agree with them. Or you hear it, you're an Uncle Tom. That's what they say.
Listen, the most bigoted comments I hear today come from liberals. The racists that we should just turn our focus towards are teachers' unions who trap poor black kids in cities like Chicago out of their greatest future because they refuse to let them go to good schools. I can't imagine why the Democrats have not just said, dear people, I'm sorry, we resign, love DNC. Truly, that's the best thing they could do for the nation. And frankly, I'm looking forward to bringing this race for Donald Trump to be our next president to my home state of South Carolina so the race can be over and we can focus on firing
Was it uncomfortable up there?
And guess who Tim Scott won't talk to? Black people. Ain't nobody black people watch Fox News. Ain't nobody black watching Laura Ingraham. And then, who the hell does she think she is? All the racist crap that we hear from her and numerous folks on Fox News. Can y'all please show me the clip of Laura Ingraham and Senator Tim Scott condemning Charlie Kirk for saying, oh, if there's a black pilot flying, I'm getting off because they probably got in through DEI. I'm sorry, that clip don't exist because they're not calling him out. See, here's my whole deal. And I can look at history. I got his book at home. If Bob Brown was on the show, Bob Brown could actually, and I know Greg got the book over there somewhere, Bob Brown could actually say what he did as basically the top African American under President Nixon for black folks. Oh, he could count, boom, 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 boom. Bob Brown wouldn't have to lie. He would not have to lie. But Senator Tim Scott he's literally, y'all, what he said is easily disproven. But when you're talking to a fool like Laura Ingraham, who ain't never ran into a fact she couldn't distort, it feeds the beast to say, see, the black senator, he said that Trump did all this stuff for black people. Y'all know he skipped saying, oh yeah, by the way, Donald Trump blamed and targeted black people. Did any of y'all hear Senator Tim Scott and Laura Ingraham condemn Trump targeting the two black women in Georgia? Turning life upside down, the ones with the Subaru Giuliani? I ain't heard that. I ain't heard that. The same Senator Tim Scott, who I got on video going down to Selma for the field trip with Congressman John Lewis, but comes back to the Senate and opposes the John Lewis Act. Oh yeah, the same Senator Tim Scott, who thwarted the George Floyd Justice Act. And then when I questioned him on how was it that he did the exact same thing, calling for the defund of police departments that would not pass certain rules and procedures, he stopped returning my text messages. Oh, he was real talkative before. But then when I hit him what was on his bill and what his deputy chief of staff said, all of a sudden,
he stopped talking. What we see here, Reese, is the BS. And what Senator Tim Scott doesn't like, he doesn't like being called out on facts. I'll say it again, Senator Tim Scott, because you've been running from black-owned media. You won't come talk to us. Oh, you run to Fox News. You run to Margaret Brennan over at Face the Nation. Oh, you run over to Meet the Press. But you're not going to come talk to black-owned media because you know what's going to happen. I'm going to say, go to my iPad. And I'm going to sit here while you sit right here and lay out the facts and then force you to defend the lie. And that's what's so galling, Senator Tim Scott. And I had you on the show before. We had cordial conversations. When you challenged me to have a discussion, a whole show dedicated to education, I said, when you want to do it? Y'all, it was so funny. His staff thought I was joking. Oh, well, they said, well, Senator, he just threw it out there. I said, no, he didn't think I was going to accept. I made him come back for a whole hour discussion on public education. See, Senator Tim Scott can't do that stuff with me, not when I'm the founder of School Choice is the Black Choice. See, I understand charter schools. I understand school choice. I also understand fraudulent scam programs like the voucher bill in Texas, like the one in Tennessee. See, it's a little hard to have that conversation with me when your brother and your sister and your other sister have been teachers. See, it's a little hard to do that because you can't throw that little teacher's union crap out to me and think I'm going to bite on it. Nah, it don't work. But Senator Tim Scott, don't lie. What you said about HBCUs and Trump is a flat-out, bald-faced, undeniable, easily proven lie. And you know it. And the fact that you will go on Fox News and knowingly lie tells me you ain't no different than the man you stood up there and said, I love you. I love you, Donald. Reese?
Well, I think that obviously Tim Scott, like all Republicans, don't traffic in the truth. They traffic in whatever narrative they think is going to win them that conversation. I think Tim Scott is feeling a little bit of heat and maybe a little bit embarrassed for the way he debased himself multiple times now with this buffoonish minstrel-like performance that he puts on to show his fealty to Donald Trump. I mean, the eyes bulging, appropriating Fannie Lou Hamer. It's disgraceful and it's embarrassing. And he's going to piss a lot of black people off being a buffoon for Trump. I mean, have some damn dignity, sir. You are a freaking U.S. senator and you're sitting up there acting like the male version of Diamond and Silk to try to get on that VP ticket. But I think that he is groveling all for naught because Donald Trump already said, you stabbed Nikki Haley in the back, even though she gave you the U.S. Senate seat, and he is not going to put somebody that he thinks is disloyal as his number two, like he felt about Mike Pence. And so all of this is just really a really embarrassing audition, and he's hurting his credibility. He used to be somebody that people at least somewhat considered more of a reasonable Republican, but this turn that he's taken, which is always his truth, willing to shill for the Republican Party and for white supremacy, it's beneath him. And that takes a lot for me to say because I already think very lowly of Republicans generally. But this, even for you, is beneath you, Tim Scott. Man up.
Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, he perfected 3 stereotypes in one moment. It's actually pretty impressive. He did the magical Negro. He did the special black friend. I mean, Harriet Beecher Stowe would be very proud of the performance by Tim Scott in this last week. And the lack of self-awareness there is pretty amazing. I actually think that he does have, in fact, a complete lack of self-awareness. And, you know, as somebody who's met him and talked to him a few times, he seems like a perfectly nice guy, but I cannot imagine that somebody from his office did not call him or somebody from his family did not call him after that. what we saw last week, because it was pretty stunning not to realize what you look like in front of the nation to somebody who has said that, who has attacked your colleagues like Maxine Waters and certainly several other Black members of Congress, has referred to Baltimore as an S-hole and African countries as an S-hole, and then said that Mexicans were murderers and rapists. I mean, this is the person that Tim Scott wants to be vice president to. This is the person that he looked at and said that he loved. I mean, it is incredibly embarrassing on a level that is beyond minstrelsy. And the idea that as Reese just said, a U.S. senator would just embarrass himself like this is even beyond what we're typically used to when we see people kissing Donald Trump's ass right in front of everybody. But I think it's particularly embarrassing when we consider who Donald Trump is. You know, if this was George W. or George H.W. or Ronald Reagan, yeah, it would be terrible. But Donald Trump, really, Tim Scott, this is who you want to be the vice president to. Now, I would like to think that he's got some Machiavellian plan in his head that maybe Trump is going to be thrown out of office should he be elected again, or that he could possibly become president should he be his vice president. But I actually don't think Tim Scott's that deep of a thinker. I just think that he's just some dude from South Carolina. But man, that was unbelievably embarrassing what we saw this week.
Greg.
That was a beautiful, not even a takedown, because you didn't do it. It wasn't mean-spirited, Lauren. That was just beautiful. Yeah, I can see that on C-SPAN instead of R-SC for Senator Scott when he speaks. Tim Scott, paren, just some dude from South Carolina, close paren. Because I think that frames it perfectly. I mean, Tim Scott is an incredible blend, an alloy of political ambition and complete and utter, what did the brother at Dartmouth, Jet Charlotte, say the other day? Naked self-abasement. Booker T. Washington had an excuse. Booker T. Washington had an excuse. He had felt the lash. He came out of slavery. And Booker T. Washington never abased himself personally. He kikied for the money from the white folk, from the Carnegies and the Baldwins and the railroad people, and he used it for Tuskegee and to run his Tuskegee machine, and ultimately improved the lives of a number of Black people and pissed off people like Monroe Trotter and Ida Wells and W.B. Du Bois. But there was a political thing, and there was an excuse. You came out of slavery. Tim Scott didn't come out of slavery. He comes out of humble beginnings, but this is a man who exhibits all of the deep self-hatreds that mark the psychological wounds of African people in the contemporary era. You combine that with his naked political ambition. I mean, as we say, we can talk to Cory Booker about that bill in 2021 where they worked together, and Scott tells him, hey man, if you can get the FOP on board and these police chiefs, or get a couple of police back, we'll do that. And then Cory Booker gets the Paternal Order Police and the IAC of Ps, the International Chiefs of Police, to sign on to this reform legislation that still didn't have qualified immunity on it. What does Tim Scott do? He leaks the damn draft of the bill to the Sheriff's Association to give him cover to tank it. Why? Because he think one day he gonna be president. This fool, this handmaiden, this fool. And so finally, Al Sharpton was right today to say he's humiliating. The man is humiliating himself. And when you talk about that level of naked self-abasement, standing out with your loafers on the beach at Kiowa Island and the Sea Islands, on one knee, trying to somehow convince people that you're somebody you're not, all thinking that somehow that's going to make them pick you. As these young people would say, he's not being extra, he's doing the most at this point. I don't know how you look yourself in the mirror.
Real simple. If you lie, I'm going to call you out on it. And Senator Tim Scott, you flat out lied. You lied when you went on Fox News. Pure and simple. Now again, chair's open. I got one chair. I got a chair right here. Got a chair right here. We could sit in a comfortable living room sat over there on one of the couches. But if you want to talk about Black people, Tim Scott, come talk to Black people. Don't be scared of your people. Because trust me, Laura Ingraham, she ain't one of your people. Go ask those black employees at Fox News who filed a racial discrimination lawsuit. Oh, yeah. We covered that too. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Cobb. We look at the history of emancipation around the world, including right here in the United States, the so-called end of slavery. Trust me, it's a history lesson that bears no resemblance to what you learned in school. Professor Chris Manjapra, author, scholar, amazing teacher, joins us to talk about his latest book, Black Ghost of Empire, The Death of Slavery and the Failure of Emancipation. He explains why the end of slavery was no end at all, but instead a collection of laws and policies designed to preserve the status quo of racial oppression.
The real problem is that the problems that slavery invented have continued over time, and what reparations are really about is saying, how do we really transform society, right? And stop racial violence, which is so endemic.
What we need to do about it on the next installment of The Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Next on The Frequency, we have an incredible conversation with my guest, Nadira Simmons, talking about her new book, First Thing First, Hip-Hop Ladies That Changed the Game. The founder of GumboNet tells us the stories behind the women in hip-hop, starting with the first woman that promoted the hip-hop party to Megan Thee Stallion. There's even a chapter on me. That's next on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
We just have one of the oldest cultures that's desperately needed for mutual salvation. That's the consciousness. We have the keys in our roots to save mankind. We get to see the condition of other countries, other oceans, other cultures. And if we believe in God, a lot of us do, He's telling us if you don't get rid of that stuff that makes somebody superior or inferior and work together for the mutual salvation, everybody's gone.
And executive producer of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, a Texas judge has ordered a trial to be held next month to determine whether a black high school student can continue being punished by his school district for refusing to change his hairstyle. Now, the family says his locks are protected by a new Texas state law called the Crown Act. Daryl George has not been in a regular classroom at Barbers Hill High School since August 31st. Instead, he has served an in-school suspension or spent time in an off-site disciplinary program. And the Barbers Hill ISD superintendent, Greg Poole, contends that George's long hair, which he wears in neatly tied and twisted locks on top of his head, violates a district dress code that limits hair length for boys. Let me say it again. His hair is not low. Pull a photo up of him. He wears his hair
high. So you're complaining about his hair length, but the reality is it's not long. Now, Georgia's family says the policy violates the Texas Crown Act. Y'all, his was so crazy. The same superintendent last week took out a full-page ad in a Texas newspaper to actually suggest that, well, to be American is to conform. When y'all have the ad, please show it. It's unbelievably crazy. Retta Bowers, a state representative in Texas, she sponsored the Crown Act, and she joins us now from her home in Garland, Texas. All right, so Representative Bowers, the school district contends that the Texas Crown Act, as written, does not specify hair length, so therefore, they say their policy is in order.
Roland, thank you for having me. We just want to say that the Crown Act, as it is written, we made sure that the protective styles that are protected by this new law were spelled out, being locks, bantu knots, braids, twists, even wearing wigs. And I don't know any Black person in America that locks their hair not to grow it. So to say that length is an issue is really just a loophole that they were trying to find. You already mentioned Barbers Hill ISD and Greg Poole. This is the same school district that was a bad actor that prompted us to make sure that we had a Crown Act passed here in Texas.
See, the thing that's crazy here for me, is that this is precisely why. This is precisely why the law was passed.
Exactly.
The law was passed. First of all, the law ain't that hard. It says you cannot discriminate against somebody for their hair. Correct. And you specify in there, this is a district that is specifically targeting this young man. And what's mind-boggling to me, because we've had him on and his mother, is that he's not wearing his hair down. He's literally wearing his hair up. So they're arguing length when it doesn't, it's crazy.
Correct.
What this is, let's call this what it is. This is a white superintendent who is trying to flat out govern how a young Black boy is to wear his hair. And they're saying is, how dare you be different and wear your hair different?
Exactly. And it is racial discrimination at its best, and based truly on the way he's wearing his hair. You know, I said yesterday at the press conference that the way he's wearing his hair doesn't harm anybody, doesn't hurt anybody. He wears his hair locked in barrel rolls, so it is well above his collar, well above his ears, well above his eyebrows. So it does not violate their dress code policy. The other thing that really bothers me about the fact that we passed this bill, and you know, Roland, you and I talked about this many years ago. We passed it here in Texas after filing it twice, 4 years of working on it, and it's the same school district, and again, an African-American young man targeted, and they're not doing it to anyone else. There are many students that are Anglo or Caucasian at Barbers Hill ISD and the high school that their hair is much longer. The attorney has pictures of it. The craziest thing to me is when I got a copy of the case, Exhibit A, if you look at Exhibit A, They have his hair in a totally different style. He had it in a different style, but there again, it's above his collar. So he might have been wearing his locks differently when they took pictures of him, but never once has it been touching his collar, below his earlobes, or below his eyebrows. And if I tell you, his hair is neatly groomed. His locks are beautiful, if you ask me. And it felt like time had rolled back as we sat in that courtroom yesterday, and like it was fighting for the right to vote. This young man wants to go to school, and he's not even, he doesn't have any disciplinary issues. They're just keeping him from classroom instruction. And I think it's 80% of this school year he's been out of the classroom. He is an 18-year-old. He's a junior right now. And what I'm afraid of is that he will be held out of the classroom for an entire year. Exactly what we were fighting against, to keep from happening. So it's really disturbing when you think about it, because, what I don't want to happen is him to get to senior year and they're saying he can't graduate.
Greg Poole, the superintendent, took out this ad, and folks, go ahead and show it. A full-page ad in the Houston Chronicle. He was, guys, you should have the control room. He was complaining about them not printing a letter to the editor. And so he's going on, and he's in here talking about COVID, and he's talking about, he says, we have African-American students with hair longer than our dress code permits. They qualified for, and were granted religious exemptions. And he's talking about how their African-American population has grown, and parents are flocking to a disciplined school district that prioritizes safety and has high expectations in all things. It doesn't lose sight of the main goal of educational excellence. And he's in here talking about the progressive history of the district. And this is what is trip. He says in here, the problem with relaxing standards without any regard to academic implication is the precedent it creates. Our military academies at West Point, Annapolis, and Colorado Springs maintain a rigorous expectation of dress. They realize being an American requires conformity with the positive benefit of unity and being a part of something bigger than yourself. Okay, first of all, Greg Poole is lying. First of all, they are called, see, here's the whole deal. They're called military academies. Military academies. Individuals are officers when they leave there. So they are abiding by military standards. It is no different. I am a graduate of Texas A&M University. We have a Corps of Cadets that sends more officers to the military every year than any other school outside of the military academies. If I chose to become a member of the Texas A&M Corps of Cadets, I would have to abide by the dress code of the Corps of Cadets, the hairstyle of the Corps of Cadets. But because I did not become a member of the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M, I was a regular student. So it's nonsensical for the superintendent to say, we have our military academies and it's about American conformity, when he gets to dress how he wants to, unlike the leaders of the military academies that he mentioned.
Yeah, and Roland, you're exactly right. This is, we're from the same hometown. I'm from Houston. I'm from Detroit, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm from 3rd Ward, and the reality is, when you talk about conformity, Barbers Hill ISD is the one who is not conforming. They are not complying with what is the law in Texas right now. And they are not wanting to change their dress code policy to adhere to the Crown Act. And, I went to private school. I wore uniforms, but we're talking about public school in Texas, and right now, race-based hair discrimination is against the law. The Commissioner Mike Morath needs to make sure that all ISDs are in compliance with the Texas Crown Act. And the Crown Act, it promotes acceptance, engagement, student engagement. It promotes freedom to be accepted in the classroom and in the workplace. So whether that's in the classroom or the boardroom, that you can walk in as you are, wearing your hair, rocking your crown how you wish, and be accepted as a professional human being and bring the intelligence that you come with to the table without question. And I just think that they're just trying to find a loophole to keep from adhering and complying to with the Crown Act. So we worked too hard to pass this bill and this legislation in the state of Texas, the deepest southern state to pass it, in a bipartisan way. It passed 143 to 5 out of the House, 29 to 1 out of the Senate. And when Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick received it from the House, he said it was a bipartisan bill. So they just need to know that they are the ones who are choosing not to conform. And I want to say this. Greg Poole did everything in that full-page ad but called me by name. And I want to say this. You call my name, I'm going to show up. And that's why I showed up down in Anahuac, Texas, outside of Mont Bellevue yesterday at that hearing. I called once this thing, they had Daryl George out of class. I tried to call the communications director. He would not speak with me, and I understood that it was a federal case, Roland. But doggone it, you know, he found a way to call me yesterday after he saw me standing right there in Anahuac. You know, I am upset because we worked too hard to pass it, and it is the law in Texas, and they just need to follow it.
And here's the one that I'm really confused by before I go to my panel with some questions for you, Representative Bowers. That boy's hair ain't got a damn thing to do with education.
Nothing.
He is an excellent student. It literally has nothing to do with learning. It is not an impediment to learning. It is not an obstacle to learning. These are flat out lies. No, what we're dealing with here is this is a superintendent who wants to impose white standards on black children. That's what this is. And if Greg Poole wants to operate in that way, he should go to a private school where you can establish those rules. But this is a public school, which is supposed to abide by Texas laws. But then again, when you have a governor who right now, Republican, who is defying the Supreme Court after they ruled against him when it comes to the border, this is not a shock because frankly, for a lot of these conservatives, they don't have to follow the law if they disagree with it.
Right. I mean, I'm trying real hard not to say preach, because that is what this is. That they don't like it. It doesn't look like the way they wear their hair, or they're not happy with it, so I don't have to do it. And you know what? As black people, we don't have that luxury. We don't get to do what we want to do if we don't want to follow the law.
Lauren.
Yeah. I'm wondering with this, where is everybody? Like, has Sheila Jackson-Lee chimed in? Has the CBC chimed in? Has the NAACP chimed in? I mean, they sure as hell have no problem chiming in when we're talking about foreign policy and everything else. This, to me, is a very low-hanging fruit type of issue. He should not be out of school, obviously. Right. This is obviously outrageous. And it's been going on now for quite a long time without the same amount of attention that other things get. And frankly, the other thing I was thinking as I'm sitting here is, if this was a woman, if this was a girl, if this was a female student, I suspect this would be all over MSNBC and Karen Finney would be talking about it on CNN. Do you get the sense at all that because this is a young man and not a young woman, that it doesn't get the attention that perhaps it should get?
I do. I talked about this yesterday as well at the press conference. You know, I said that gender and gender identity shouldn't matter in this case, but they do in their dress code policy. It does say males. So this is about a young Black man, and that's what it is. And when you talk about the CBC and some of our congresspersons, you know, I do have to say the Texas Legislative Black Caucus stands firmly with me and behind me. We are working for sure at the state level to make sure that we have the right affidavits on file when we come to the trial next month, so that legislative intent can be proved and present in that room, so they know what we intended with this legislation. You know, and federally, when you look at it, in March of 22, the House passed their version of the Crown Act, but the Senate, U.S. Senate, held it up. So that's where we are with it. The Congressional Black Caucus for sure does stand by the Crown Act, and the Texas version matches the federal bill. So they are behind us, and if we have to ask for support from the federal level, we'll do that. You know, my idea is not at all to go back in the 89th or 88th legislative session in 25 and amend this bill in any way. But I'm glad I'm up for re-election, so that if I have to, as the author, that I can certainly be there and be the one to amend my own bill.
Reese?
Thanks.
Representative Bowers, I want to thank you for your leadership on this. I don't have a question, but I would be remiss if I didn't make the comment that when he said conformity, what he really meant was assimilation. And this is just another effort at policing Black bodies and particularly Black hair. And I do want to say that Black hair is not dangerous. It's not threatening. It's not a distraction. It's not unprofessional. And so this young man deserves to be in school, not in some suspension type of activity or alternative schooling. This is something that's going to have an impact on him, potentially long term. And I do applaud his parents for sticking with it and sticking with their convictions. And I applaud you as well. Now, I do have a question in terms of the school board. Has there been any engagement from them? As my understanding that the school board school boards in Texas select the superintendent. So is there any pressure being put upon the school board to make the superintendent fold on this issue?
Well, you know, it's hard to say. Thank you for that question, because the school superintendent, he's got a lot of power in this community, and people are afraid to stand up to him. And so at this point, we're having to work with the State Board of Education.
Well, in fact, I just want to jump in here, Representative Bowers. Go to my iPad. This is what he put in his editorial. He said, we have had 2 school board elections in which candidates supporting our current dress code earned 88% and 91% of the total votes. The people who pay taxes in the Barber Hills ISD are the voices we listen to. He said our school board's determination to be true representatives of the people and never lose sight of the goal of providing the absolute best public education a student can receive is what created the COVID-19 response that the passing of time has shown was the right approach for our students, blah, 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 blah. So, so basically what he's saying is school board got my back, I'm good.
Yeah, I will say this. My colleague, you know, that represents Barbers Hill ISD, is working with us, and she's a Republican. So that's Representative Terry Leo Wilson, and she certainly has talked to the superintendent, Greg Poole, himself, and told him that what he is doing with Darryl George is totally out of line, is discriminatory, and that he needs to allow that student back in the classroom. She herself supported the Crown Act, voted for it, and told him so. So for him to say that maybe his school board does support it, but the fact remains it is a direct violation of the Texas Crown Act, And we are here to make sure that any bills and laws and legislation that we pass, that it is enforced properly and that it is adhered to. So I just want to say that, Daryl George is not a distraction. He's not here to harm anybody or hurt anybody. He's ready to get back to classroom instruction and learning so that he can have the best quality of life and education. And they're stealing that from him. They are robbing him of his education and good quality of life in the community. And so I want to say thank you for understanding that his parent, Derecha, is doing the right thing. His mom is doing the right thing by not taking him out, especially since this is law now. When this happened before with DeAndre Arnold, they chose to take those students, he and his cousin, out of the school district. So at this point, this is a real test of the Crown Act, and we're okay with it because we know that it will stand up in a court of law. We are the only thing about yesterday at that hearing that I wish the judge had done and Judge Kane didn't do is he wouldn't grant a temporary restraining order so that Daryl George could go back to school.
Gotcha. Greg?
Thank you, Roland. Thank you, Representative Bowers. I don't know why you Texas Negroes won't just do what a white man says. But at any rate, because Coach Poole, who's got a doctorate apparently in ed leadership from Texas A&M, I doubt that he knows that Bantu knots actually kind of can extend down past your shoulder blades. But
please don't let him know that.
Well, I mean, he's got an EDD, so I'm not sure. But I mean, I think it does.
He can't spell Bantu.
And no question about it. No question about it. But it seems like this is just a piece of these Texas white nationalists attempting to challenge federalism. When it's local and they like it, fine. If not, fine. And he's hiding behind his brother in the editorial, Mark Wilson, saying that he voted for the policies. But, a couple of things I want to ask you as it relates not just to the Crown Act, but to the other lawsuits. I understand that the families of DeAndre Arnold and Caden Bradford actually have a federal lawsuit, a civil rights lawsuit that's still active. And I read something where the attorney representing the George family said that white boys in that school district can wear their hair over their ears and collar as long as they don't braid it like a Negro.
Yes, sir.
There seems to be some selective enforcement going on. Any thoughts on suing the living hell out of this genius former coach who just isn't used to Negroes not doing what he says on federal issues, whether it be the Civil Rights Act of 1964, particularly as it relates to gender-based discrimination, racial discrimination, since white boys can wear their hair over their ears and by their collars as long as they ain't braiding it like a Negro? Any thoughts on basically not only seeing the Crown Act validated, but ripping their guts out in the federal courts around civil rights violations?
Absolutely, because, when we passed the Crown Act last session, it came to me after I got home, the dust settled. Be honest with you, Governor Abbott's had us in session all last year with 4 special sessions. But you're right. I realized that passing the Crown Act was just scratching the surface in civil rights legislation, and there's so much more.
Oh, sorry, folks. We had a little snafu there, so we're going to try to get Representative back to finish her comment there. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing here, y'all, we see what's going on here. I mean, this is white supremacy in action. This is trying to police black bodies. That's what this is. Texas has 254 counties. This is the only school district that continues to give folks hell. And so they're trying to prove a point. And they're going to waste taxpayer dollars by going to court and fight this. And that's what you're seeing here. And so what you have here is you have people who are adamant they don't want to follow the law. It is no different than what we're seeing from the governor of the state when it comes to the border. And so hopefully, looks like we don't have Representative Bowers back. So I want to thank her for coming on. We're going to have her back on, obviously, next month when this goes to trial. And so we can't wait to see the conclusion. So let me go to a quick break, folks. When we come back, we're going to talk about Mitt Romney slamming Donald Trump when it comes to saying, yeah, don't pass immigration reform, anything to do with the border, because I want to run campaign on this here, and Republicans are falling in line. And I'll talk about that letter Governor Greg Abbott of Texas posted regarding the border as well. If you actually remove slavery, slide in immigration, sounds like a Confederate letter. Yep. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Grow your business or career with Grow with Google's wide range of online courses, digital training, and tools. Gain in-demand job skills with flexible online training programs designed to put you on the fast track to jobs in high-growth fields. No experience is necessary. Learn at your own pace. Complete the online certificate program on your own terms. Stand out to employers, get on a path to in-demand jobs, and connect with top employers who are currently hiring. Take one professional career certificate program or all 6. Earn a Google Career Certificate to prepare for a job in a high-growth field like data analytics, project management, UX design, cybersecurity, and more. All professional career certificate programs must be completed by December 31st, 2024. Scan the QR code to complete the application. There are 1,000 scholarships available. Grow with Google and J. Hood and Associates. Be job ready and qualify for in-demand jobs.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Marissa Mitchell, a news anchor at Fox 5 DC.
Hey, what's up? It's Sammy Roman, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, fam, boy, Republicans talk about being compliant to Donald Trump. So you have an individual in Donald Trump who has told Republicans, don't you dare do a bipartisan deal to deal with the border and immigration reform because he wants to campaign on it. This is Mitt Romney talking to CNN.
Do you think this is what he wants, the issue, Donald Trump? This is what he's doing.
I think the border is a very important issue for Donald Trump, and the fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and Congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling. But the reality is that we have a crisis at the border. The American people are suffering as a result of what's happening at the border, and someone running for president ought to try and get the problem solved, as opposed to saying, "Hey, save that problem. Don't solve it. Let me take credit for solving it later."
See, here's what's going. So he laid out what the deal is. Mitch McConnell has already told his caucus that, yo, we're in a bind because Trump wants to run on this, and so he's impeding the action. Now, I saw a report earlier that said that senators are still meeting. This is where Republicans, Lauren, have to show some guts and say, hey, we were elected to lead. Listen, you're running for president. That ain't got a damn thing to do with our job is. We're going to continue negotiating on this deal. And for those Republicans who don't want to go along with it, guess what? That's on you. But they don't have those guts, Lauren. They will suck up to Donald Trump. And I'm telling you right now, Democrats should be hammering their asses every single day going, where you at? Where you at? We here. What y'all want to do? Where you at? Oh, I'm sorry. Your dear leader told you don't sit down and talk to us. I'll be wearing their asses out every single day.
Yeah, well, this GOP is just an endless, bottomless pit of nothing. That's what they are, an endless, bottomless pit of doing nothing, of standing for nothing. And what's really, really amusing to watch is the part where you have certain Republicans complaining about the border crisis, blaming Joe Biden, and now their dear leader is the problem. Of course, he doesn't want to fix anything because, of course, he wants to use it for an election year. But to get back to what Reese said about two weeks ago, when you don't invest in communication strategy and you don't invest in communications or even really have a strategy of communications like the Republicans do, which they invest in misinfo and disinfo, and they also take the time to have their ecosystem of communications hammer out the same nonsense over and over and over again, that's how you win these conversations, even though you're dead wrong. So here they are, dead to rights, dead wrong in front of the nation. Now Mitch McConnell's trying to pretend that they're actually still working on it, which everybody knows they're not. Mitt Romney, of course, takes the freaking veil off the entire thing. And so they look stupid as they usually look stupid, but you have to have the communications mechanism to expose their stupidity, and the Democrats don't have that. They don't have that. And so watch what happens next. Here they have a golden opportunity to expose the GOP for exactly what they are, which is a party of absolutely nothing that stands for absolutely nothing. And yet, I bet you that they'll somehow figure out a way to blow it. I don't know that I'm right about that yet. I hope I'm wrong, but let's see.
You know, Reese, I am a huge, huge fan of The West Wing. It is one of my all-time favorite shows. And put me in a two box. Actually, just pull it up. Don't pull the audio. Let's pull the video up, Reese. And this is a scene right here, Reese, where there was a government shutdown on the show. And President Jed Bartlett was dealing with Republicans who control the House, and they weren't returning his phone calls. They were not meeting, and so his staff said, let's go to the Hill. And so what then happened was they got in the limousine and walking to the Hill. Jed Bartlett, he got out of the car and he was shaking hands and all that sort of stuff like that. And eventually what's going to happen in this video here, Reese, Jed Bartlett on the West Wing is going to go to Capitol Hill, and he is going to sit outside on the bench of the outside of the office of the Speaker of the House. Now, what was interesting in this particular scene, Reese, is that all the media cameras are sitting there, and they're literally shooting him, and they're like, wait a minute, is the president literally sitting outside of the Speaker's house? And they tried to suggest, some people, oh my God, he looks weak. No. What he did was he embarrassed them by going to them and daring them to open the door and to negotiate with him. This is the scene of him walking down the hallway. And again, all the cameras are there. And so he's going to eventually get to the Speaker's office. And he's going to knock on the door, and they're inside, and they're trying to figure out, okay, oh my God, he's what? He's outside. Do we actually answer the door? Do we actually sit down with him and negotiate? What do we do? Well, when they kept playing around, finally Jed Bartlett got up and left and went back to the White House, forcing them to have to come to him to hammer out a deal. Now, I know somebody is watching. Stick with the video. I know somebody is watching, and they're saying, well, Roland, that's television, that's fiction, that's not. No, that's exactly what President Biden should do, or he should send Vice President Kamala Harris and dare them to leave her or him sitting on that bench waiting as they sit inside. Dare them to actually negotiate a deal. Challenge them where they are and say, y'all have been saying, oh, go to the border. You haven't done anything. And guess what? We are here. We are ready. You need to defy Donald Trump. If you say you care about the American people, then why won't you do something about it? To me, that'll make some damn good TV.
Well, it's quite theatrical what you just outlined there. And I don't think that Democrats tend to dabble too much in theater in the same way that Republicans do. Republicans understand that you don't let a good crisis go to waste, and they know how to capitalize off of chaos. That's why you have these Republican governors trafficking human beings, migrants across the country, dumping them in places where they don't have the resources, and twisting the arms of Democratic mayors and governors. I think that, as appalling as Eric Adams can be on many things, he at least had enough sense to file a lawsuit, fight back against the bus companies to make it appear as though he's trying to do something to stem the crisis that is being inflicted upon his city because of the Republican governors trafficking migrants to his area. I think the big thing is the immigration issue is a losing issue for Democrats, to the extent that they can win back some people who are disgruntled about what's happening with the immigration crisis. You're going to lose people who are more so pro-immigration, or at least pro-humane treatment of migrants. And so that's why they're being very mute and very hands off in terms of the coverage and the messaging around what's happening with immigration. And they have to figure out some sort of sweet spot to not necessarily elevate the issue beyond where it already is, with Republicans taking advantage of it, but also seeming like they're doing something. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. I don't know that they are doing much. I mean, I know statistically speaking, border crossings are down. Deportations are up compared to even how many people Trump deported. But those are not the kinds of things that they necessarily want to advertise, because they don't want to alienate certain aspects of the Democratic base. So this is a very thorny issue. But one thing Republicans have figured out is they rarely, if ever, get penalized for incompetence, for obstruction, and for not solving things. And Democrats, on the other hand, do get penalized for not fixing the world with the stroke of a pen.
Look, here's the deal, Greg. I get all of the hand-wringing, but frankly, I think it's weak. At the end of the day, if I'm the Biden administration, you damn right, I'm going to announce how many people we deported last year, which was an increase from the previous year. I'm also going to say Ronald Reagan signed an amnesty bill into law. I'm going to say that the immigration issue has not been a problem for the last 3 years, or for the last 7 years, or for the last 10 years. It has been a problem for the last 50 years. And so then what I'm going to do is speak about it broadly and lay out the various things that must be done. But what you can't do is just run from it. And you got to have the guts to challenge people like Texas Governor Greg Abbott. This is the crap that he sends out. This letter right here saying the federal government has broken the compact between the United States and the states. He's going on and on and on with this BS. Now you've got, 15, 16 Republican governors. I stand with Greg Abbott. You've got Representative Chip Roy saying Governor Abbott continued to defy the Supreme Court. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. This is when you are President of the United States. And again, if I could use another movie, American President, when Michael Douglas said, I am the President of the United States. And when you say is no state is going to usurp the Constitution, you are going to follow. And then you begin to say, Greg Abbott, if you want people in your state to follow the law, call yourself law and order, well, then you abide by the exact same laws and the Supreme Court has already decided. You challenge them that way. And then you say, and then I dare say this here, what President Biden should do, he should say, fine, Donald Trump, you want to come back into the Oval Office? I invite you to come down to the U.S. Capitol for the meeting as well. See, you call their bluff. You challenge them. You don't play footsie with them. You swing. You swing hard. Because, yes, if you look at the polling data, Republicans are polling strong on immigration. But guess what? It wasn't fixed when Trump ass was there for 4 years. It wasn't fixed when George W. Bush was there for 8 years. It wasn't fixed when George H.W. Bush was there for 8 years, when Ronald Reagan was there for 8 years. And so you invoke all of them. But you got to be willing to fight, and you can't be wishy-washy on this thing.
No, Roland, I don't think that there's an answer really to this, because it has been framed. Immigration is a problem. That is the framing. That is a lie. That is incorrect. We, of course, are the largest population of forced immigrants in this country, having been brought here against our will. And everybody but the indigenous people is an immigrant. I won't even get into why you shouldn't be calling Mexicans immigrants.
First of all, I was just reading the Washington Post story last night about the BS about the Alamo, and all them white folks who came to Texas when Mexico was running were actually immigrants.
Absolutely. In fact, as your friend Gerald Horne, as you have talked with him, and I have as well here on this network with the counter-revolution of 1836. These are cold-blooded white nationalists. And as far as I'm concerned, and Jim Bowie had enslaved Africans in the Alamo Fort. And if we knew our history, we'd be cheering for the Mexicans. But of course, this is where the problem comes up. You're talking about white nationalists. The Democrats are soft white nationalists, and the Republicans are the hardcore white nationalists. And in this case, as always with foreign policy, it is nativism that is driving this. Now, if there is a United States of America in 100 years, it's going to be very different than the one that is here today. And we're going to look back on this moment as perhaps the death knell of white nationalism in this specific regard. Federalism, protecting white nationalists, worked in the Civil War. It worked in the so-called civil rights movement, but this has never gone away. There is no immigration policy in the federal Constitution. The Immigration and Nationalization Act of 1965, following an earlier iteration in the 1920s, is when they got worried about immigration because it began to be less white. And the Italians and Jews.
Boom. Sustained.
Exactly. But
sustained.
But 100 years from now, when white people might be the largest minority group in a majority, quote unquote, minority country, this is going to be a very different conversation. Now, how does that speak to today? Joe Biden can't take the position that immigration is good for the economy. Now, we just saw today, numbers released, the economy is booming, GDP is up. Now, that doesn't hit everybody's pocketbooks in the same way, because a majority of these fools trust Donald Trump to handle the economy better than Joe Biden. So we know this isn't about information. A third of the voters in the Iowa caucus has said their number one issue is immigration. I didn't know that was an issue in Iowa. It's not. What is that issue is white supremacy and nationalism here, nativism. So what the Democrats can do, however, to the point that you're raising, is take off the gloves and fight within the context of an unwinnable argument about immigration, because immigration is not an issue. But we have to set that aside, because we're not talking about rational actors now. We're talking about nationalists and people who don't pay attention. What he can do is federalize the Texas National Guard. What he can do, like Congressman Castro and them are saying, look, man, stop playing with this shovel-mouthed bastard governor who is trying to spark a civil war. Stop playing with people like this hillbilly J.D. Vance in Ohio, who is saying, don't send this bipartisan legislation to the House because MAGA Mike Johnson has already said that onward Christian soldier is going to die and they're going to blame MAGA. He has to push back against someone like Tom Tillis in North Carolina, who's up for election in a couple of years as that state continues to change demographically, who is like, this isn't weak legislation. Y'all just scared of Donald Trump. Nobody will say anything. You just got to seize the moment and push back. Finally, this is an election year, as we know. The mummy is going to lose Michigan behind this Israel-Palestine business. That is a terrifying thing. It should be terrifying. You can't square foreign policy with the white nationalists, because this country exports white nationalism, meaning their foreign policy on that issue, they're both the same. This is why the mummy McConnell wants to pass the Ukraine package and knows that this immigration thing is a problem. But what we have in this country is a dying white nationalism, and the Republican Party has bet everything on staying in power a little while longer by clinging to it. And Joe Biden has to make a choice. Either you're going to come up out of that soft white nationalism and attack them, or you're going to continue to whistle past the graveyard, lose, and you know who's going to get stuck with the bill for that? The people who watch this show, not the mummy Joe Biden. He's going to be in Delaware. We the ones going to have to face the naked face of white nationalism in this country if Trump gets back in office.
People need to understand what is truly at play, and absolutely. And for all the people who are watching, this is why I keep trying to explain to y'all why you got to stop spending so much of your time
on the gossip blogs and all the other BS. Because what is happening right now, y'all, we actually saw this in the last 15 years. You know where we saw it? Europe. Guess what's been going on in Europe?
That's right.
I need everybody to understand what I'm talking about. In the last 15 years in Europe, guess what happened? The Germans, the Italians, the French, the British, all them white folks stopped doing the same thing white folks in America stopped doing. Procreating. They stopped having babies. If you go right now to Google and look up what's the average age of Italy, Ireland, Germany, France, England, increasing. What's their concern? We ain't gonna have no people. Now, some of these FBA B1 dumbasses, Roland Martin said here, he said we need immigration. We need these people. Let me say it again. Okay, you know what? Since some of y'all don't understand, the report came out today talking about the economy grew at a 3.3% annual pace. It's called gross domestic product. It's called GDP. Let me explain something to y'all. Your GDP can't grow if your population is falling. Okay, let me say it again. Your GDP cannot grow if your population is falling. Why have they been having economic anxiety, economic calamities? Why has Europe not rebounded as quick as the United States when it comes to inflation? It's because all of those folks in Europe are trying to hold on to whiteness, and guess what? They're dying. That's why they have been fighting in Germany, in Italy, in France, in Britain, African immigration, black people, brown people. Oh my God, y'all didn't see all the stories? I did, the last 10, 15 years. Too many of them coming. We're losing our way. Y'all stop having babies. Italy, Ireland, Germany, France, London won't exist in 30 years if their population keeps falling. Okay? I'm gonna throw one more on here, because see, this is, I know some of y'all sitting here, so y'all trying to look at me like I look at Dr. King. Why you focus on this foreign stuff? Why don't you stick to that little black stuff, civil rights? Y'all ever heard of a country called China? Anybody remember watching 60 Minutes in the 80s when they did a story on China's one-child policy? Greg, Reese, Lauren, y'all might remember that. Yes. One child policy, y'all. Absolutely. China was like, hey, we got too many people. So you know what China did, y'all? China said no family could have more than one kid.
That's right.
Now, everybody talking about how smart China is. No, China was dumb. Because China didn't do no math. Nope. What China didn't realize is if you limit one family to one child, when people start dying, you need a population to replace the people who have passed on in order to continue to do all of the jobs in a functioning economy. Guess what happened? China went, oh shit, the hell are we thinking? So you know what they did? Shit, okay, 2-child, now they just changed it, 3-child. Next up, they're gonna be saying, hey, I need y'all to have 5 kids.
That's right, and it's too late.
Too late, y'all. It's too late. Because guess what? All of the people who were living in rural China, manufacturing in the farms,
yes,
they don't exist. They moving to the city.
China is having economic upheaval because they ain't got enough people.
That's right.
So what white Americans are doing, that's why I wrote this book, White Fear, because I lay it all out in here. We're losing our way. Y'all, the numbers simply do not lie.
That's right.
You're not going to have a great America and an economy 30 years from now unless you have people
That's right.
in the jobs, trained, educated, and now positioned to have children in order for the next 30 years. See, some of y'all just thinking about the next 6 months to a year. And I get these black people, man, they coming over here, they taking our jobs.
Wrong.
Listen to me, black people. These white supremacists got you using the same language.
That's right.
Using the same language as them. And I already know. I know all you FBA B1 dumbasses gonna run your mouth, do your videos. See, there you go, he an anchor, baby. He Haitian. I'm not.
And if you were, so what?
Right. Mom and daddy from here. Grandparents from here. Great-grandparents from here. My maternal, paternal ancestors migrated from Haiti. That leaves me with 3 other grandparents, dumbasses. But, oh, and by the way, for all you dumbass FBA and B1 people, black immigrants account for 10% of the U.S. population. And so when we're talking about congressional seats and we're talking about apportionment, and we're talking about census dollars and stuff along those lines, guess what? Those black immigrants are included. So you're going to want that 10%. Because, see, you're going to want the number of folks who are black immigrants who are in Minnesota. You're going to want those black immigrants in Houston, largest Nigerian population. You're going to want those black folks from Liberia, black folks from Bermuda. See, this is when I need our people to stop listening to YouTube economists.
Come on.
TikTok anthropologists and Instagram political scientists to understand the larger picture what we're dealing with here. You have to create a functioning system where you're processing people properly and then where they're also going. Because the last point I make here is this here. For all y'all people who are sitting here, who are freaking out, guess what? Black and brown immigrants is what has changed the population shift and the electoral shift in places like Arizona, New Mexico, Georgia.
That's right.
See, this is the problem, Reese, that we got too many people listening to dumb folk on social media who are not fully understanding of what's going on here. And while these same people are yelling and screaming about migrants coming in, they don't even have remotely the same energy when it comes to advocating for public policy for the existing people that directly impacts us. They spend more energy trying to fight them versus, hold up, wait a minute, hold up. Let's make sure these folks are elected, then let's make sure these dollars are apportioned, because I'm gonna say it again.
Right.
Congressman Bobby Scott was sitting here shoveling money to HBCUs when the Democrats control the House. And guess what? That money was, so guess what? All these HBCUs, Tennessee State, Howard, Morehouse, Spelman, Texas Southern, Florida A&M, we're seeing massive increases. Now we got to build more dormitories. What's that called? Black construction. Oh, now we got to acquire the land. What's that called? Black real estate people. Oh my goodness, we now got to have more goods and services. What's that called? Black stores. But again, though, the simple Simons out there don't quite understand the notion of building
a black economy and a black infrastructure because they so caught up sounding like white supremacists saying, oh, here come those other people. Another round, Reese, Lauren, then Greg.
Yeah, and I want to caution Black people in particular who do find some sort of sympathy or community in the notion that immigration is a problem. I don't mean immigration is a problem in the strictest sense. I mean trafficking people and dumping them off with no resources is a problem. That's the crisis that we're talking about here, not just the fact that people are coming to this country. But I don't know that. But what I do want to say is look at what we've covered in this show with the Crown Act. When you have white nationalists empowered to disregard state law, which is what we saw with the superintendent doing with the Crown Act, when you have white nationalists like Greg Abbott and the 15 other governors that said, I stand with Texas, willing to disregard the Republican, extremist, radical, right-wing Supreme Court because they got one ruling that didn't go their way, what do you think that means for us as Black people? Don't find community and don't find a hero in the people that are attacking your citizenship right now, that want to strip you of your right to be a Black person in the skin you are in, with the hair that you are, going to the ballot box, going to the schools, going to do whatever you want to do, who want you to conform, who want you to bow down to them when they pull you over for a damn traffic stop or whatever. These are not the people that we want to empower under the guise that they're going to solve immigration, because as we're seeing the discussion kicked off, they don't really want to solve immigration. They want it to be a hot button issue so that they can continue to grab more power. Now is not enough because they have the House, but they don't have the numbers they need in the Senate and they don't have the White House. So they're just bidding their time using this issue as a hot button issue to further empower themselves, on the state level, to disregard federalism, disregard the courts, to do anything they want to do. It's not going to stop with immigration. It's going to keep going and going and going. It's already done with women's bodies. Black people, we are always ones to get it the worst. And so be careful what you wish for with these Republicans saying to hell with Biden, to hell with what the Democrats are talking about. We're going to take matters into our own hands. That's not something that I would ever usher in if I had a choice.
Lawrence.
That's right.
You know what? I think that even though it's certainly true that we can get lost in this idea of some of these bad arguments, these bad faith arguments that Republicans make with regard to immigration, I mean, there is a lawsuit in Chicago. 3 Black Democrats are bringing up the fact that the migrants who were bussed in by Greg Abbott into Chicago are getting certain social services that they're arguing that the Black community should have been getting for years. And I'm not sure that that's a bad argument. I haven't read their lawsuit yet. But even though on its face it sounds like something that a Republican would say, I think we do have to figure out this complicated issue of what we're doing with folks who are not legal citizens in the United States. But these cities are, of course, trying to take care of people because they're trying to be humane, in New York and Chicago in particular. And as somebody who's been in New York a lot over the last 2 months, that's a really difficult question. You know, what do you do with non-citizens that do have to be taken care of? And through really no fault of their own, this gimmick of being bussed in was, you know, absolutely crazy. But at the same time, when you see social services going to folks who are not citizens and you're a citizen of the country, particularly African Americans, I mean, we are the group that has been screwed over for 405 years. We should be at the top of the list asking these questions about why it would be the case that a group of people would be housed and given health care, et cetera, and so on. You know, our community a lot of times disproportionately does not get those services. So I think those are fair questions. They're complicated questions, but I don't know that we should get caught up in being afraid to ask those questions, even though they sound like something that some MAGA Republican might ask in Congress. But those questions still have to be answered. You know, I do think that there's a lot to unpack on a lot of the social questions we have. And what complicates that is when you have, you know, bad faith actors, and obviously Donald Trump involved is incredibly unhelpful. But at the same time, there's some things there that need to be dealt with.
Greg?
I agree with Lauren. I think what we have is the unfinished business of changing the fundamental structure of this criminal enterprise called the United States of America, this settler state. And people hear me say that and they say, why would you say everybody calm down? The chance to do that was the Civil War and Reconstruction, the Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And I won't go into this in detail today. We've talked about this a long time, many times. Everybody has talked about this in one way or the other. The simple fact of the matter is that this country, if it wants to be what it claims to be, is going to have to treat all human beings with a fundamental, basic decency. And people say, well, if you're not a citizen, you can't be treated like citizens. That's simply not true. When you read the 14th Amendment, Section 1, the Privileges and Immunity Clause, it says that, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. They made up substantive due process in the slaughterhouse cases. That's a story for another day. This is judge-made law. And if you read what Ketanji Brown Jackson has been saying in her short time on the bench, she's committed to this rereading that will be true to the nature of those Reconstruction Amendments, which is, as far as Black people are concerned, when the United States begins as a constitutional enterprise. It's not George Washington and them. It's in the smoke of the Civil War. I'm raising this for a reason. The 14th Amendment, if you are living in a state, the original interpretation of the 14th Amendment and the legislative debate over the 14th Amendment meant to ensure that you as a person had fundamental rights. Your citizenship didn't matter. It talks about citizenship in the previous sentence. Again, I don't want to get too far into this. This is where I want to come to, because I agree with what Lauren has said. Everybody should receive social services. Everyone should receive health care. Everyone. The Democratic Party has betrayed its ostensible founding principles when it says that it's going to look more and more like this corporate Republican Party, which brings me to the point that the expiration of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, a lot of those provisions are going to expire in 2025. This is stuff that Trump and them pushed through with Brennan, Tim, mission accomplished, Gerber, baby, Bucktooth, whatever, Mushmouth, Scott standing behind him with Paul Ryan and them in the Rose Garden as they gave away stuff to billionaires. When those provisions expire in 2025, the Brookings Institution released a report late last year that said at least $3.5 trillion can be generated in revenue by reforming the tax code in 2025. Again, why this election is important. Biden and them been pushing for this. If you simply restore the corporate tax rate to 28%, and this goes back to the gladiator invader of Grenada, Ron Reagan, and Bush and everybody else, and then Barack Obama and them too scared to deal with it, and then here come Trump and them giving the store away. If you simply restore the corporate tax rate to 28%, that raises $1.3 trillion over the next 10 years. And guess what? Those dollars can now can be used in part to put a floor under everybody. You don't want Black people who are citizens of this country and immigrants from other places playing oppression Olympics. That only serves the billionaires and these poor white people using the N-word, shooting through increasingly fewer teeth in their mouth because they have no health care. This is a game where conflict like that only supports the rich, and those are the ones who are gaming the system. If the Democrats are too scared to take that position, then damn it, at the state and local level, people have to make another set of choices. But this is not going to be resolved. If it's not going to be resolved peacefully, it's going to be conflict in this country. But there's enough for everybody if this country is committed to that. We know it's not now, but we have to be the ones to say, stop. We can make sure that it is.
This is very basic, folks. Republicans have been ranting and raving, go to the border, fix the border, fix the immigration problem. And right now, you've got Democratic and Republican senators ready to strike a bipartisan deal. And Donald Trump goes, wait, don't you touch that, because I need immigration as a campaign talking point. Because they can't run on the economy, y'all. The numbers are changing. They can't run on that. So now it's like, I need that, I need that. And this is the moment where Democrats should be on the offensive, saying, where you at? We're here. We're ready. In fact, I will say it, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, I say Senator Chuck Schumer,
Go to the border, have a news conference, and say, where you at? See, again, they have been punking Democrats. Yeah, Vice President Kamala Harris, you're supposed to be the border czar. What you doing? Where you at? Remember all the funk they made about how she answered the question to Lester Holt about going to the border? This is when you go on the offensive and you say, oh, y'all don't care about the American people. Y'all don't care about this issue. Y'all some crass politicians because your dear leader, the orange orangutan, has told you, don't you dare fix this problem because I need it for the next 8 months. That's right. Hit them. Forget that Michelle Obama crap. When they go low, we go high. Nah. They punch you in the chest, you punch them in the stomach. They punch you in the stomach, you punch their ass in their thighs. They hit you in the thighs, you punch their ass in the shins. They hit you in the shins, you knock out their damn ankles. They hit your ankles, hit the bottom of their feet. This is where Democrats have to be absolutely aggressive, completely aggressive, and say, you want to swing? Let's swing. Y'all a bunch of hot air. Y'all are all talk. You ain't trying to fix jack. And then you can say, just like your boys had infrastructure week for 4 damn years. See again, all y'all who are at home listening on the podcast, video, audio, listen what I'm about to say. Biden Harris goes, 4 years. All y'all had was infrastructure week. Y'all were all talk. We passed the bill. Y'all will all talk about reducing inflation. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Trump, you didn't sit here and fund HBCUs. We dropped $6.5 billion to HBCUs. You were excited about $250 million. They can walk their asses down on issue after issue after issue, but you can't be afraid to swing. And then if I'm Biden, I'm like, you focus on my age, I'm focusing on getting stuff done. They should be hammering every single day. They should be sending out administration officials, not campaign officials, administration officials. Democratic leaders in the House, Democratic leaders in the Senate, Democratic governors, Democratic mayors should be saying, you're sorry, do-nothing Republicans. All you're doing is kissing the ass of Trump and not fixing the problem. Who do you work for? The American people, or do you work for that orange one indicted 4 times on the 91 counts? Yeah, that's how I would respond. I would be hitting every Sunday show this weekend, every show on Saturday. But you also got to have a coordinated attack. And let's see if y'all up to it. Because we already know what they're going to do. They've already made it clear what they're going to do. That's right. They want to run on the issue. You say, we came here to get stuff done and to fix stuff, not to kiss Donald Trump's behind. We shall see what they do. Lauren, Greg, Reese, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much for being with us on the show today. Thank you so very much. Folks, that is it for us. Be sure, I'll be broadcasting tomorrow from Toledo, Ohio, because on Saturday, I'm going to be speaking at a conference there. I'm on there Saturday morning, so I got to fly in tomorrow. And so if you're in Toledo, I'm going to be at the University of Toledo on Saturday for a moderated conversation with regards to their conference there. It's the annual Toledo Excel Conference for Aspiring Minority Youth, the 40th annual conference. And so look forward to that. Again, moderated conversation between myself and Black Thought, followed by an audience Q&A. So looking forward to that, folks. Don't forget, support us in what we do, y'all. Y'all know how I roll. I'm not sitting here spending my time on no silly little stuff. If y'all saw my Louis Gossett interview, we were discussing real stuff, substantive stuff. I just don't have any patience, any tolerance
for the gossip and things along those lines. And so that ain't what we do. So if it means that we don't have the same number of views as other folks, then so be it. But we're gonna keep talking the real stuff that matters to our people, the information that you need, that can feed you, enlighten you, educate you, and not just entertain you. So support us in what we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Again, we want you to support us. I'm telling y'all, and I'm not lying, y'all, okay? I was at the TV One, I was at the Urban One Honors on Saturday, ran into a couple of agency people, and I'm like, y'all ain't gave us a dime. I said, nothing. We've been meeting with y'all for 3 years, and nothing has transpired. Those 2 agencies I ran into, y'all, those 2 agencies represent 100 billion of the 340 billion spent every year by advertising. And I told them, y'all ain't giving us a damn dime. So when I say we're fighting that good fight, we absolutely are. So your support is absolutely critical. I just can't tell you, because none of this stuff is free. None of this stuff is free. Last week, some of you rightfully were complaining, and I agree, when our feed got cut off. So we had to get a whole new streaming server because the Clearcaster, they stopped servicing that, so we had to go get the Teradek services. Y'all, that was, what was the number? $18,000, $20,000? Yeah, I had to drop, like, y'all, we spent about $8,000 a couple of years ago on a Clearcaster. We thought we were good. They hit us in the middle of the year, hey, this has been discontinued. So we had to turn around and drop $18,000 for the new encoder to kick the message out. And then we were having some issues with that, and of course our fiber. And understand, y'all, we're paying for fiber and Wi-Fi. Fiber and the Wi-Fi, those 2 alone cost us almost $5,000 a month. Because we need a high enough gigabyte and we need a high enough speed to be able to, so we don't have anything that breaks up. So that's real. Those are real, absolute dollars. And that doesn't even include staff, being able to rent the facility, all those different things like that. We ain't broadcasting from the basement, from somebody's mama's kitchen table. We're doing real stuff, real production. Not only are we on YouTube, we also have our Black Star Network app. We also have 4 fast channels. We're sending our signal out. We create our 24-hour streaming channel. So we're building something. And in this election year, what we cannot do is have outlets that are talking to crazy folk like Vivek Ramaswamy and not talking about our issues. I don't care about people like that. Our stuff matters, and we gotta have a place that we own and control where we don't ask permission to talk about the things that matter to black people. So send your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Of course, you can download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. As I said, you can check out our 24-hour streaming channel. We're available on Amazon News. Go to Amazon Fire. You can pull it up right there on News. You can tell Alexa play news from the Black Star Network. You also can watch us on Plex TV. That's right. You can watch us on Amazon Freevee and Amazon Prime Video. So when you go to Amazon Prime Video, click Live TV. When you go under News, guess what? We're right there along with MSNBC, NBC, CNN, all the rest of them. I want to thank Lois Beasley, Shalina Rogers, Jennifer Jones, Willow Howard Rogers, Kenrick Burke, Leslie Harrell, Alan Evans, Shanette Richardson, Sean Houston. All of them gave during the show today. Tanya Williams, I appreciate that. Yesterday and last night, we had Bernard Celine, again, Vunu Holiday, Carolyn Anderson Bush, Leonard Moses, Douglas Burt, Donna Fields, Allison Caraway. We have Bernard Silver Days, Khadijah, Gary, Wendy Isom, Sharon Bland, Dwayne Hairston, Jacqueline Parker, Kendrick Langley, Adrian Fuller, Crystal Sovereign, Carla Taylor, Marigold Media, Javian Williams, Margaret Gahutu, Lois Beasley, Alfred Richardson, Denise Wright, Jay Mercer, C. Kelly, Akeem Smith, Brian Hall, Randall, Clara, Achalafu, Jeffrey Carter, Barry Igbo, Veronica Landfair, Nelson McCrimmon, let's see here, Sharon Neal, Latasha Minor, Herbert McKinney, Candace, Cynthia Walker, Kathleen, Reginald Cobb, Conchetta Harris, Daryl Johnston, Gwendolyn Thomas, Andrea Durant, Tracy Reeves. All of those people have given to this show in the past 5 days. And so we appreciate, no, past 3 days. So we appreciate, that's Cash App alone. So we certainly appreciate all that y'all do. Trust me, we're doing the work. And so your support is critical. And we thank all of you for supporting this show from day one. I'll see y'all tomorrow from Toledo. Holla! Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?